Hey, Rob Sakalas. Glad you're back. This is episode 2 of Escaping Average. The whole idea is that you can be the hero of your own story. You can escape average after graduation and join the top 10% in the country. Here's the good news. Bottom line, it's your grand do-over moment. Right now, the difference between everything that you've had in life up to this point, all the school, all the struggle, has changed. The real world is completely different. And you've got an amazing opportunity, right? The rules of the game are just different. And an important thing to realize is the larger the company that you're joining, the more complex the politics are, the better your chances of success if you adopt the right habits to succeed. This is really great news unless you graduated from the Ivy League, unless you graduated as a summa cum laude or a magna. Why? Because those people were at the front of the bus. They absolutely had it going on, and now all of a sudden the world has changed, and it's not easy to keep that same success going because the rules that you use to become a valedictorian are not the same today. Easiest way to imagine this is that the real world just doesn't have any right or wrong answers. If you imagine the Olympics as an example, right? Up till now, you've been a downhill ski racer. It really didn't matter how you looked as long as you went through the gates and you got to the bottom of the mountain the fastest out of everybody else, right? It was a numerical thing. There were right and wrong answers. Did you make it through the gate? Did you get down there in 1 minute and 32 seconds? The real world is a lot more like floor exercise in gymnastics. It doesn't matter exactly how you do your routine. You've got to have those judges actually love your routine, which is a trick, right? The way they perceive you is what's crucially important, right? The problem is that way too often in the real world, nobody's even judging, right? When Simone Biles was doing her floor exercise, she knew that at least everybody was watching her and making sure that they scored her as well as they possibly could. In the real world, the chances are your boss or the other people that can influence your career may actually be in a different city, and they're not going to be paying attention. They're absolutely going to be checking their own stock portfolio. They're going to be worried about their own promotion. They're going to have a kid that's in school that's sick. They may not be watching at the right time, and therefore it's really hard for you to get the right attention. When you think about getting employment, the employer's point of view of college is completely different than your own, right? They look at it like this person has proved that they're smart enough and persistent enough to graduate. They're hoping that you learn the frameworks to be able to learn fast. They want to make sure that you're a proficient communicator because everything in business, no matter where you work, communication is crucial, right? They're hoping that you got enough math to survive the real world and you got a vocabulary for your field so when they try to teach you something, you at least have a basis to start. Some colleges do a pretty good job with this, but not all of them. Learning to work in teams is crucially important because the real world is dominated by people working together. And really, it comes down to understanding the difference between facts and knowledge and understanding and imagination. If you got all those things, the employer is very happy with your college experience. The truth is, for the first time, IQ will matter less than it ever has before. The reason for this is there are no right and wrong answers. So what really matters for the rest of your life is EQ. EQ is your emotional quotient. This is how well you get along with others. This is how well you understand what the other person is thinking. It's incredibly important, and it's really easy to understand that you have to start paying attention to a lot more of the world that's not in your own personal space, right? I've mentioned this before, and this is kind of a preview of what episode 4 is going to be about, which is that starting well is absolutely crucial. You want to land in the best possible spot. I personally got lucky. I went to work for a guy named Bruce Travis, and I've mentioned in episode 1 that mentors matter, and my first boss was absolutely one of my best mentors. I got a master class from Bruce in the first year on EQ, understanding the emotions of everything else that's going around with my coworkers, with my colleagues, with my customers, with everybody else, right? It was an incredibly great way to start. Now, in the long run, it's not just EQ. SQ, or your social quotient, is what matters the most for the rest of your life. What that really means is you understand not only your world and how you interrelate to it, but another world farther away from you, right? And how you project charisma. How do you network? How do you have a group of people that all think positively about your own personal brand? that becomes very, very complicated. But if you were ever in a fraternity or sorority, you've at least gotten a microcosm of what this is really like, right? If you ever ran for officer, you had to influence people that were outside your personal circle, right? That's the exact same world here, except that it's much, much larger and farther apart. The single thing that can help you the most is to write it down. You have to create a permanote system where you can not only make great notes, but you can find them later. A very simple one, if you're already on Gmail for your email, right? You can go to Google Keep. And Google Keep runs on smartphones, it runs on your desktop, it runs on your iPad. And it's an easy place to keep Post-it notes where you can search every word of the Post-it note. Not necessarily the only system that's out there. There's Evernote, there's all these other things, but you absolutely want to take notes. So that way, when you meet that person again, 6 months later, you still remember those pertinent details that will help you expand not only from an EQ perspective, but an SQ perspective as well. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is build trust. You can never cross the line of trust. Once a person doesn't trust you, they'll never trust you again. It's absolutely essential that you build that trust. And the way you do that is to remember personal details about everybody that you meet. That's absolutely job one. But way too often, it's like we think, oh, I just met this person. Oh, sure, I'm going to remember. But a year later, are you going to remember? The answer is no. So ultimately, the good news is this is a do-over moment. The rules are different. It's not about IQ anymore. You get a complete ability to start just like everybody else. But you have to learn about emotional intelligence. Throughout all these episodes, I'm going to give you suggestions of things to read. This is absolutely a great book, Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. Absolutely addresses the topic. And another one that's well worth mentioning by Justin Bariso is EQ Applied, the real world guide to emotional intelligence. If you read those books, I think you'll understand why this is so important. And I'll see you at episode 3. Don't forget to subscribe below. And if you haven't seen episode 1, start there. It's a much better way to start. All right. Thanks and have a great day.